All right, we're about to start reassembly of the Jeep CRD diesel. We've got our head back from the machine shop and got the ARP studs in place, and all the block is all cleaned up, and we're ready to put the head back on. So let me show you some of the details here. So this is a cast iron block, but despite that, it's actually got pressed in liners. So these liners can be replaced. The engines are completely rebuildable, so you don't have to hone the cylinders. You can just replace the actual liners. And something that's unique to this engine, and maybe all diesels, I'm not sure, this is my first diesel, the liners actually protrude up beyond the surface of the head, and that gives it a better bite into the gasket and a better bite into the cylinder head. Sorry, the block. It protrudes up beyond the block. Got the ARP studs in place. I chased all the holes. Got them all situated. They have to be placed. You screw them all the way down and then back them off 2 turns to get the proper height out of them. Cleaned up the surface of the block with first a brass wheel and then the 3M disc. I'll show you that in a second. So I started with this guy, the brass wheel. I figured the brass wouldn't bite into the cast iron block, so we were safe there not to score it up. Did a pretty good job. There's still some corrosion around the water holes, but this is actually a slight deficit. That's not a buildup. That's actually some corrosion in the metal. But hopefully the copper coat will take care of that, along with the head gasket. After that, I followed it up with the 3M roto disc to clean up all the old gasket material and any debris that was left on there. Came out pretty good. The best part is over here. Head came back from the machine shop and came back with a clean bill of health, no cracks, passed the pressure test, no issues there. And we've got all new intake valves, all new exhaust valves, new springs, new keepers, new valve stem seals, and they did a nice job cleaning it up. They did mill it very slightly. There was a lot of surface roughness, and the previous time this engine was apart, somebody must have used like a Scotch-Brite pad or a pretty aggressive tool to get the old gasket material off and kind of squirt it up. So machine shop recommended that we mill it, so it's done. And then as a result of that, so this is the head gasket. This is the old one. This is the new one on the left here. There's 3 different thicknesses gasket that are available from VM Motory. There's a 0 hole, a 1 hole, and a 2 hole, and that hole is located right here. This little hole is just an indicator mark of what the thickness is. So this is a 1 hole. This is the 2 hole right there. So originally the engine was manufactured with a 0 hole. When they did the repair last time, when the glow plug snapped off, they repaired that and they put a 1 hole on it. Now I'm going with a thicker 2 hole because they did have to mill the head. So next step is we're gonna put this head on. One other thing I wanted to point out, the intake valves, they almost look like they're used, but they're not. These marks, the manufacturer, VM Motory, they heat treat the intakes. I'm sorry, did I say exhaust? Intakes and exhaust. The exhausts don't need to be heat treated because they get enough heat on their own. The intakes run relatively cool, so they get heat treated from the factory when they manufacture these valves. So they've all been replaced, and the seats have all been ground down, and everything checks out on the head. So we should get a good bite. We should get good compression. All right, we're coating our gasket with some copper coat. All right, heads placed on. I'm going to trial fit these nuts. They say that the ARP studs, you have to space these out. You can adjust the depth, the penetration depth, so that you can get a good bite. Yeah, see, that's not enough. I'm going to have to back these out another turn to get a good bite on these guys. So they say 1 to 2 turns on these. So let's see. All right, I got my Allen wrench. So the spec on this is 1 to 2 turns from fully seated. So there's 1 turn. There's fully seated. There's 1, and there's 2. Let's try that. I'm going to hold it in place at 2 turns and see how. Yeah, so it's 2 turns. Okay. All right, so I'm going to have to set all these, and then we'll start applying our torque. So I'll be back. So in order to get the torque correct, when you tighten all this down, they want you to coat the washers and the bottom of the nut with some of this assembly grease so that it doesn't bind when you're torquing them. So I'll do all that, and then we'll go to the torque process. Okay, the depth of the studs are all set, the nuts are on, everything's lubricated. Looks kind of like a mess, but there's a lot of assembly lube everywhere. But we're ready to get this torqued. So the procedure here is a very specific sequence, and there's 4 torque specs that we have to follow in sequence. So number 1 is go to 50 foot-pounds in this particular sequence. So 3, 2, 1, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then 11, 12, 13, 14. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 around the outside perimeter, the other on the inside. So we're going to start with number 1 here. Got my torque wrench set at 50 foot-pounds, and we're going to start with number 3, which is here. On to 2, which is here. There we go. All right, we're up to the 3rd torque sequence, which is 100 foot-pounds, pound-feet torque. Okay. All right, final sequence coming up. All right, 130 foot-pounds, inside row first, then we back it down to 120 and do the outside row. So this is the hardest one of them all. This is 130 foot-pounds or pound-feet of torque on number 10. Oh, number 9. Okay, now I gotta lower it to 120 to do the outside. I'll spare you the grunting. All right, everything's done. Losing light here, it's past sunset. I'm just gonna go over this one more time. Center at 130, starting with 10. Okay, I'm gonna go, well, no, I'm gonna back it down to 120, do the outside perimeter. Okay, I'm gonna go back up and check the centers one more time, just for my own sanity. Key to this job is a good seal, so let's try this real quick here. Quality check. Alright, and then I'm going to keep going around these until I don't have any movement, but you get the point. Let me just show you this. So I'm going to end the video here. We're pretty much done with the head, and we got a beautiful sunset going on in Phoenix, and I think it's still 90 degrees here on April 1st. So we'll see you when we get the rest of the parts in.